right, what is up, everybody? Today is a busy day for me, so I'm happy to be hopping on here and having a quick chat about some music stuff. Just got done with a workout, getting some stuff scheduled for the day, and I have some teaching I got to do later. I've got a band practice later. I've got to learn some stuff later. Like, I've got a pretty busy day here, so I'm gonna kind of just try to squeeze in what I can with today. And that's kind of the whole ordeal. So welcome to the stream, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. So kind of what I'm going to talk about today that I get asked a lot is, the first thing is, do I need to be able to read music to be good at music, right? Because I think a common thing that us guitarists have a fear of is sight reading, right? Is just some general reading of music and stuff like that. So what I'm gonna kind of talk about is, should we do it and how do we do it if we want to do it? Hey, what's up, everyone? Thank you guys for coming. So please ask questions in the meantime. So should you read sheet music? I'm gonna say yes, depending on where you're going with things, okay? And I'm gonna kind of explain why very, very quickly. So the thing is about sheet music is, looking at music on a staff versus on tab, there is a drastic difference of understanding melody, harmony, and music theory, okay? Because I'm going to give you an example in a second, but when we look at straight tabs and numbers, often it doesn't correlate to understanding music and music theory, right? Because if I see fret number 2 of the D string and then fret number 1 of the B string, all we see are the shapes. But in reality, playing those two together creates what? A C chord, right? So essentially what I'm trying to get to you guys is start trying to look at music in another way like this, okay? Like, let me give you another example. If they say fret number 3 of the high E string and fret number 3 of the B string and then open G string, you're going to see this when you do it, which would create what? A G5, or I guess a G chord. But what we really want to be able to do is see that on the page before we go to the guitar, okay? So that's kind of the lesson here today. So now, how do we actually read guitar sheet music and actually get good at it fast? Because listen, nobody wants to sit there all day and go, every good boy does fine in FACE, and I'm here to tell you that there is a much easier way that I go through with all of my students when we start sight reading a little bit, okay? So the nice part is every good boy does fine can work pretty good to start, okay? But when we start getting onto the fretboard and stuff, I'm going to give you a reference point, and it's going to really help you get through pieces a lot faster, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. In a second here, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you how I sight read like a very beginner-esque piece. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at some Trenia, okay? And we're going to look at the study in E minor, all right? Because the study in E minor is a very, very simple piece, but I'm going to show you guys how you can, let me not do tab. Let's just do PDF and see what comes up. So this is one that I've done so many times on and off. It's been a minute since I've looked at it, but it's a really good beginner piece, okay? So strictly speaking, what I want you to think about first before we get into a couple of these measures is this. The note E on the second fret of the D string is going to be our reference point, okay? And then from there, we're going to really learn and understand how to get to the rest of these reference points, okay? So let's go back to the study, and I'm going to show you everything you need to know about sight reading on the guitar. So the first thing to look at is this. Let's find the note E. Let's see if we even have an E anywhere. We've got, that's okay. So if the note E is right here on the first line, if we go up to one space next to it, what note do we have? F, right? Because up one spot on the staff is equal to up one tone, or let's say one letter, okay? Don't even worry about the sharps or flats yet. We're not even getting into that, okay? What I'm saying is that if we're on the first line right here, if I go up, I'll zoom in even more. Going on the first line right here, going up to the first space goes to F. Going up to the second line, this note would be a G, so you can play the open G for that, right? That totally works fine. Okay, so from there, we're just counting, okay? And this will help you understand your intervals tremendously, okay? So let's give another example. What would the third line be here? Right here, okay? So the third line right here, if this was E, the first line would be F, then we'd have G on the second line, then on the second space, we'd have A, and then right here, we'd have B. Okay, so every good boy, B, or you can just go by what we're doing, which is just counting with the intervals, right? So that's essentially how all this chaos works, okay? So if you were playing this, I'm going to ignore the low string first down here, but if you were playing this note up here, let's figure out what this is. So if this is an E right here on the lowest line, we have F, G, A, B. We already knew where B is right here, so let's just count from B, C is the next space, D is the next line, then E is up here. So that means that it's a higher E, right? So I do E, B, G, right? That's it. Okay, so going from there, I know that people get confused when these notes get above the staff, like right up here and stuff. Don't worry about that right now. What we're trying to do is just get a general idea and a general gist of how to sight read, okay? So like I said, what exactly does this tell us? Like what we just looked at just now, why does that actually matter of us looking at it like this? Well, looking at this without even looking at the guitar, I see an E, I see a B, and I see a G. Okay, so assuming that you know your triads, what way can I stack that as a root third fifth if I have an E, a B, and a G? It can be an E minor triad, right? If I rearrange things a little bit, I can have the E at the root, I can have the G as the third, and then I can have the B as the fifth, right? Most things with classical guitar and guitar in general just work in terms of the basic theory that we already know, okay? So this basically is saying like, hey, this is making a E minor chord, okay? I know my guitar is a little out of tune, but remember, we're just doing this to kind of start to get the gist of everything, okay? So honestly, keeping things going here. If we looked at this higher note right here, it would be what? We know that the E, the high E, is right here on the last space. Then the next line is what? F. And the next one is what? G, right? So everything, all you really need to do is just count in terms of the alphabet, right? If you know how to count on the alphabet, you guys can do this. So I'm going to repeat all this one more time in 5 seconds. The lowest line is E, and from there you just count, and as you count, you'll get better at understanding intervals on the guitar, and you'll also get better at understanding the fretboard. You'll get better at understanding the chords and the triads and all these positions and stuff like that. So if the first line is E, the middle line is what? E, F, G, A, B. All we really got to do is count, right? So this note is B. You're right. It's an F sharp. So I'll talk about the key signature in a second. Thank you for pointing that out. But going further right here, like if you notice that this is a G, it's still an E minor triad, right? So, right? It almost sounds like a G major chord, but given the context of everything else, it's clearly more of a E minor chord. But anyways, like somebody said in the stream, that there is a key signature here, okay? So assuming that you know what a key signature is, it's just before the time signature, right? You know, and all this means is that we're either in the key of what? G major or E minor, okay? So that basically means that whatever like composition this is, it's probably going to be centered off of one of those. Now, obviously the song itself or the piece is called Study in E minor, right? So it kind of gives away the piece, right? So let me zoom out here just a little bit so you can kind of get a gist of like how a typical classical guitar piece looks. And yeah, so Like, seriously, guys, if you don't know any classical guitar, like, take a look at this. It's not that bad. Obviously, this is, like, supposed to be a piece that's for beginners, but it's a nice sounding piece. It's fun to play. It helps us learn how to start to sight read, okay? I'm going to give you guys it in the chat. The link to the PDF is right there, okay? Highly recommend you guys check it out, because going through it, even if you don't even want to do the lowest notes right here, because I know that takes a little bit of extra counting, right? Because we have to count backwards, right? So if the first line is right here is E, back one is D, then back another one on this line would be C, and then back another one like this one would be B, and then back another one would be A. So for now, I want you guys to just focus on the stuff in the staff and not outside the staff, okay? Because that gets a little bit tricky. You can do a couple if you really feel like you're ready, but otherwise, I think you guys should just stick with that, okay? So some other tips that I have for your sight reading gains and your sight reading skills. Make sure that you print, I know this is a pain, print out your pieces and pencil in notes, okay? So here's the common misconception about classical guitar and sight reading. A lot of people think that classical guitarists, jazz guitarists, and us who sight read don't use tab at all. That is very, very, very not true. Most classical guitarists, even back in the day, would use some form of tab with sight reading. And this is where I'm going to get to why using just tab is bad, using just sight reading is bad, but using both together is top tier, ultimate goodness. Okay? So pretty much, if you take a look over here at this measure, this is measure number 3. Making this shape up here, you're like, oh, goodness gracious, what do I do? Well, the nice thing is first is that it gives you the finger number to use for your left hand. So that would be the 4th finger, so your pinky on the high A, and then your 3rd finger, right, for the D sharp here. Now, what the heck is this up here? That basically means B2, right? That means to bar the 2nd fret, okay? So if I make this shape, I would basically wound up doing something like this. A nice dominant chord, right? Right? Okay, so that's basically what it means. So going through all of this stuff, there's going to be little pointers of where to do things, because remember, the hard part about guitar is you can play one note in one spot and then it in another spot, and it's the same note. The context is the key, okay? If you have really high notes, like a high B, you're going to have to play that B up there, right? You can't just, or you can play it like on the 12th fret, right? But in total, at kind of a glance, this is how we figure things out, is we look at the numbers that are on the score, okay? That's really all that it is, guys. It's really not that complicated. Like most of the time, like look at right here, it's giving us another spot where we can bar it on the 5th fret, right? So what we can do right there is we can end up playing a B with our 3rd finger. So it's a nice kind of like a Stairway to Heaven chord, right? So what I do is, like, I'll literally show you my book here, but what I literally do is I pencil in tiny little notes that just kind of help me sight read better and faster. That way, when I'm like, maybe I'm out at a gig somewhere, or I'm just playing around and I forget how to play a piece, right? This is where you penciling in stuff comes in. So I'm going to go through just the tiniest spots on my book and see how things go. So for example, this is another Terenia piece. It looks like I wrote in, let's see, what did I write in? I wrote in like certain spots where I'm barring specific things. Okay, it's a little dirty. I know, I apologize. It's been through a lot. I write in just very specific, like small things that I personally will remember, right? Like I'll write, okay, this is the Stairway to Heaven chord. This one is a power chord, but it's on the D string. That kind of stuff, because like we're not perfect musicians. We don't have the best memory with all these things, There are certain pieces where I don't need as much writing. And then there are certain ones where I do, where this one, like I haven't done the tremolo one, the Recuerdos de la Alhambra, or I'm not good at pronouncing it, but like it's it's a lot. Like something like this is something where I should take notes, but I haven't gotten through that one yet. But yeah, so don't be afraid to write tab, but use use sheet music with it. Okay, so use both is what I'm kind of trying to say. So now, I mentioned about sight reading and how it's just overall a really fantastic way of understanding music theory, right? And that's because we can see what? We can see how chords are stacked a lot better. We can see how arpeggios are stacked a lot better, right? Like in this case, if I'm looking, I don't know, let's take a look up here. Like right here, what chord is this? Okay. Right here, this chord is what? It's some type of inversion, right? Because it's not stacking like a snowman, right? That's always my clue for everybody is if it's not stacked like a snowman, then it's probably not going to be then it's probably going to be either an inversion or some other weird extension chord, okay? But G, B, and E, okay? This is a question that we had earlier that I was asking you guys is what chord is that if it's G, B, in E? How can we stack that in root third fifth? Okay, so what you'd make it is E. You can bring it down right here and it becomes EGB. Okay, so this is the stuff in like theory class that we've gone through so many times is like when we get a chord inversion, we need to know how to quickly figure out what the root is so that way we can understand it better and then label the figured bass and just kind of get a general gist of how all this chaos kind of works, okay? You know, or like for another example, if you see an accidental that's on sheet music, like right here, it should tell you that, okay, this is probably going to be either your dominant chord, since it's the what? The raised leading tone D sharp in the key of E minor creates what? The harmonic minor scale, right? So in total, what I'm saying is that like when you see an accidental like the raised seventh, it's probably going to be either your dominant 7 chord or your diminished chord, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about, guys, is like if I go over here like the measure before, like over at the 14th measure here, we have what? We have an A, a G, an A, and a C. That's obviously sounds like what? It could be an A minor 7 chord, or some kind of a passing tone with this G here, because then it kind of gets into this like A, C, F chord, right? So that's an F major chord. So you just kind of get a better feel of it, because if it's in numbers, you're not going to know right away. You're going to have to do it first. But if you see it, it's going to help you out a lot more. Okay? So that is my sight reading general lecture gist that I wanted to go through with you guys. So please ask questions as I'm kind of talking. And yeah, so that's my basic sight reading. The next thing that I'll talk about is where to go from here with sight reading. Okay? Like, the first thing is if you use Ultimate Guitar Pro for your tabs, they do have a fantastic notation spot, right? In which you can get both the tab and the sheet music, okay? Now, depending on the song, like for like a really crazy shreddy solo, use tab. I'm not going to tell you to go through like a periphery solo and just go through sheet music, because that's painful and that's going to be very counterproductive of your time. But I'm saying for other sources of material like classical or like jazz, stuff like that is where you're going to want to try out the sheet music and stuff. So what I'm going to talk about now real quick is like, should you learn classical guitar? Should you learn jazz guitar? Should you stick to learning rock and metal? What should you do from here? Well, the first thing that I will say is when you are a musician and let's say you're starting off on rock guitar, metal guitar, you're using electric guitar. Let's say that, okay? You should only be playing that for a minimum of about 7 years before you actually switch over into another genre. Because listen, as musicians, we tend to have sometimes shorter attention spans and we want to do everything, okay? Do not fall into this trap. Make sure you get really good at electric guitar before you switch to classical or jazz, okay? And I say that because we need to master one thing before we get to the other. 7 years is generous, by the way. Like, I think a really good number would be 10 to 15 years, you know, like even 20 years. If you haven't been practicing as much as you should, maybe it should be 20 years, okay? But that's kind of the general gist that I'm talking about is like, don't jump around yet. Get your stuff together with your electric guitar. Get your stuff together with the music theory with the electric guitar. Really understand the techniques of electric guitar, and it will help you transfer into the classical guitar and into the jazz guitar sort of area. Now, the other thing that I'll say is, like, if you are ready to not switch, I'm not saying that you get rid of electric guitar completely, but if you're ready to try out the next session of genre in your guitar playing skills, you need to listen to jazz and you need to listen to classical and pick which one you like better. For me, I've always liked classical guitar better. I always liked the Baroque stuff and the Spanish guitar and all that stuff, and it seemed like something that I'd rather do than jazz. And jazz is something that you can get into, absolutely, with metal, because there's a lot of shredding. There's a lot of really good, cool scales and mode positions. There's a lot of really crazy, cool music theory with jazz. But for me, at the moment, I'm still trying to master classical guitar right now while also keeping my chops up on the electric guitar, and I'm doing my composing still and all that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of just my general advice for hopping on into classical or hopping on into jazz. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it for my my lecture of understanding music and understanding sight reading. I'll stick around for a little bit just so you guys can get some questions in if you have any questions on any of that stuff. But yeah, I got a busy day coming up. I feel like I've already had a busy day, and it's only, for me, it's about 2:00. So I got some teaching I got to do. I've got some, what else do I have? I got a band practice. I've got to learn some stuff. Yeah, it's just going to be a kind of a busy day today. So, yeah, I had a good workout this morning, and just kind of trying to get through the day here. Honestly, trying to get through the week. It's been just like, this past week has just been so much playing and teaching and all that good stuff. So, oh yeah, some people have been asking me, like, is there a definite time that I'm doing these streams? The answer is heck no. At the moment, I am extremely busy, and I am constantly teaching, or I'm just constantly constantly teaching. That's like most of it. So I'm trying to do this every day. Let's see, we got a question here. Does sheet music show techniques that should be used? Yes, 100%. So that's a good question. That is called a slur. Okay, and a slur in music kind of looks like a tie. Okay, so if I look up musical slur, it's going to look like this. Yeah. So this right here would be considered some sort of a hammer-on or something like that. Okay? And it could be if it's a hammer-on, it's going to be going up in pitch. If it's a pull-off, it's going to be descending in pitch. If it's a slide, it usually has like a line that goes across. This would be more of a tie. This is a weird way of doing it, because it's like there's no staff, so I don't know what I'm looking at, but yeah, that's what a slur is. Sometimes it'll write an H to make sure you really got it. So yeah, any advice on getting a band noticed? Any media tips? Yeah, I've got some on that. I've been in the marketing game for my own band and all that stuff. So local stuff. So like, let's say you're trying to get your band, like, first thing that you should be doing 100% is getting your TikTok up and getting your reels, getting your shorts. Short content is what's popping right now. That's what I do for my Instagram. A lot is I focus on that stuff. So go AWOL with the shorts, the reels, the TikToks. Make funny stuff, make interesting stuff, make playthroughs. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do with your band and getting creative with it. There's so many things with being in a band that you have to like do as a band to market yourself into getting fans. It's a lot of online stuff these days. It's a lot of like getting on Spotify playlists. It's a lot of just getting your general music out there with actual fans, making music videos, making lyric videos. In terms of like making like ads themselves on like Facebook, you can do targeted Facebook ads for shows. You can do targeted Facebook ads for getting streams, and that sort of stuff. That's totally cool too. You want to keep your fans as organic as you can, and that mostly comes down to your online presence. So focus on the shorts, the reels, and the TikToks is what I would say to do. If you can get your song to be a trending song, then you are golden. That's what I would say. Always got to stay hydrated, right? But yeah, that's kind of my ordeal on that. I need to change my strings on all my guitars. I got some shows coming up, and I'm really digging your thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I love Blind Killer. That's like one of my favorite ones to play. I love those dark Opethy chords is what I love to go to. Like, for real. That's what I like to do. I like to teach people how to make those cool, epic, like dark sounding metal chord extensions and stuff. It's just a drop D kind of riff, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. If anybody wants to listen to my band, I'll put a link in the chat. We got a couple shows in Chicago. I think we got one this weekend. That I'm subbing for, and I'm also subbing for my buddy's band, which should be fun. That's what I'm like. I'm like practicing all their songs literally after this. Been playing guitar for 4.5 years. To me, learned Tornado of Souls. Okay. Took me 4. I don't think that's necessarily slow. Is that like you can play it at full speed, like stellar accuracy, like super slick, or is that like I can kind of make my way up through that and kind of get through everything? Like if you can just play through it and do like a really super job of it, and you're like up on this, and you can like, if you're like, let's say you're in a cover band and you guys play Tornado of Souls, if it sounds really good, I think 4.5 years is fine, because that is not an easy solo. I'm trying to think, like me 4 years into it, I feel like I could probably, I was a kid though, to be fair. Like if depends on your age too. Like if you're like, let's say if you're like 14 and you've been playing for 4 years, that's a different story. But if you're like, in your 20s or something, then it might be something that like try to find a way to learn how to play solos faster. And I have some tips on that too. Just make sure that you focus on memorizing and don't take on a huge amount of the solo. Instead, go through like a couple measures, memorize it, and then add the next measure, then go back to the beginning and memorize those 3, then add the next measure, then go back and memorize those 4, instead of taking it all at once. But yeah, make a video of it, and I would say if you make a video of it, send it to me, and I would love to see it. I signed up with Lessons with You. Oh yeah, that's right, Christopher Henry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I will see you next week. I'm excited for that. At 100% speed, my picking is identical to Marty though. Gotcha. That's something to fix. 100%. I love Marty. Like, there are very few guitarists who can write like really good solos, but he's definitely one of them. But his picking technique is a disaster, in a nice way too. I don't think he really cares, and I think that it's fine. He's been very successful in doing what he does, and I'm not one to just sit here and complain about his picking, but I'm just saying that like if you want to be technically good, I would fix the picking 100%. Make sure that you're pick slanting, make sure that you're doing more of this motion instead of using your whole arm. There's a lot of things with picking and stuff that you should most certainly fix. Alternate picking all the way. Economy picking is fine occasionally, but mostly alternate picking is to focus on. Oh my gosh, I'm so cold. It's been getting cold where I'm at, so trying to stay warm here. Yesterday was Halloween too. I just realized that. I had a pretty good day. I ate a lot of candy, and it was really fun. Let's see. What time is it? Yeah, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes. So ask your last questions. Because yeah. By the way, if anybody, my teacher says the exact same thing, but I economy pick everything. That's a problem. 100% that's a problem. And your teacher is as right as can be. Like, if you can't economy pick everything, right? Because if you do even number of notes per string, you're going to end up clustering your notes at some point, right? Like, it's very impractical. But here, I'll tell you this. You said you were playing guitar for 4.5 years. Think of it like this. If you've been playing for 4.5 years, you probably have some decent speed. It's not going to take you 10 years to relearn your picking. This is the same thing that happened to me when I used to have really bad picking technique. Like, I used to use my arm when I would pick, and I would kind of go like this instead of going like this, and it really screwed me, right? Um, but it's since you have experience playing guitar, it's not going to take you as long as a beginner. It's going to actually be a lot faster. So just do it. Just do it. Like, don't look back. Just do it now, because you're going to thank yourself 3 months from now when you're golden. I literally just had a student who I had to switch. He uses his thumb. Like, he would kind of do that when he would pick, and I fixed his picking, so now he goes like this, and he's doing great. Granted, he does practice a lot. He's like one of my students who like really practices, but you can fix it, so fix it. Your hand synchronization sucks. I don't think it necessarily sucks. I remember when I saw you, you were super, super fast. So you have the speed there. One of them is just going faster than the other. It's probably your pick. Usually our picks can go faster than the other, so we just gotta get them a little bit closer together with that. I've been honing and alternate picking. It's honestly same. Like, I've been buying some people's books and courses, and I like to go through other people's courses and learn a thing or two. Like, I'm just as much of a student as I am a teacher, and I think that's how every teacher should be. I'm always trying to learn, always trying to get better, whether it's my technique or my theory. I've been reading some more theory books lately. I've got some like really weird old ones behind me somewhere, and I'm thinking one of these days maybe I'll just straight up just read a theory book to you guys on a live stream. I've got the tonal harmony book from college, and that is like front to back everything on theory known to man. So maybe I'll literally pick that up and just read the entire thing in one live stream. But yeah, that's been kind of my ordeal. So I unfortunately have to go because I have to start learning how to play songs. Not start learning how to play songs, but I have to clean up a couple things for this show coming up on Saturday. So yeah, make sure to follow me on Instagram, by the way. It's the same as my YouTube name, Aiden Halm. Because I post like little mini lessons there. Next theory doc is in the works. I'm hoping to release it sometime next week or in a couple weeks, depending on how things go. I just got to get through this week, and then I'll finish the doc. So yeah, thank you guys for coming, and I will see you guys in the next stream.